West Ham won, Manchester United won. A really disappointing night for the Red Devils. The first sort of stumbling block for Michael Carrick. The question is, why? What went wrong in this game? Now, the first thing that went wrong in this game is West Ham simply didn't set up in a way that allowed us to capitalise and attack big spaces. What we've seen over the past few weeks is some quite open games of football. Certainly moments where the opposition's defence is quite open. And what we've seen from United is brilliant combination play to pull opposition players out of position to then attack the space in behind. So, for example, what we've been doing recently is getting the ball to the left-hand side. We get loads of people towards the ball, and what happens is loads of opposition players come with us. So if we can combine, the opposition have been drawn out of a space, and now we can attack that zone. The problem is West Ham didn't really care about these moments. When United were trying to combine in these situations, West Ham just went, all right, you can have the ball, really, and we're just going to sit in our block. We're going to sit a little bit deeper. So West Ham get these players behind the ball. So United might do these tight combinations, but they're not really going anywhere with it. We're not really attacking any space. Now, there were a couple of moments in the first half where the game actually opened up just a little bit. And in those moments, again, United's combination play was absolutely fantastic. And in those moments, we were able to quickly get forward and move the ball towards the final third. So what West Ham did, particularly as the game went on, was they went, all right, you're clearly a very good side. So what we're going to do is sit a little bit deeper, reduce the spaces, and ask you, can you break us down? Now, a quick glance at the scoreline will tell you the answer to that question. No, Manchester United largely couldn't break West Ham down. Now, we weren't without moments. We did have a couple of chances in the game where another day we score, another one of the set pieces goes in the back of the net. But largely, West Ham were very compact. And I think, first of all, we got to give some credit to West Ham. I think they defended very well. But I also don't think Manchester United were good enough on the ball. I don't think we asked enough different questions over this West Ham defence. I don't think we put enough stress on that back line. I don't think we pulled them about in the way that we would like to and the way that we have done in recent weeks. However, it wasn't for the lack of trying. United did try and threaten in a few different ways. For example, we did try and progress through the middle of the pitch, which is actually something that is quite new to this Manchester United team. We haven't seen this squad trying to break down a low block by playing through the middle. In the past, we've always gone around the outside and tried to work from there. It's quite rare and quite new to see United trying to progress through the middle of the pitch. But the way that we tried to do this was with this sort of staggered midfield that we've spoken about in recent weeks. Because West Ham, in moments, actually only had two central midfielders. You see, Jared Bowen would get drawn a little bit deeper as Luke Shaw went forward. So West Ham almost come into this sort of 5-4-1 block, a little bit like this. So for Manchester United, in these moments, we did actually have the extra midfielder. We did have three players. So by staggering our players, we were able to find a little bit of room. So let's just move this whole play up a little bit because it was sort of camped in the West Ham half. And I think that's something that United did well. We did sustain pressure. You can see that in the threat map. This was sort of United on top, dominating the ball, dominating territory. But finding a way through was another story. But like I said, we did try. You could see the staggered midfield who are trying to find a way through the middle of the pitch. And what you're trying to do with these guys staggered like this is you're trying to get a couple of them to pin the West Ham midfielders so that your third midfielder can have a little bit of space. If your third midfielder can have space, then they can make things happen. They might carry the ball forward, which causes the opposition to react. We can see this in effect here. Lisandro Martinez has the ball in a fairly deep position, and you can see those three staggered Manchester United midfielders, with Bruno Fernandes actually the deepest player on this occasion, and you can see two central midfielders in the middle of the park for West Ham. This time Matheus Fernandes is the one slightly wider. And you can see the staggered midfield, because two midfielders are a little bit higher, almost pinning West Ham, but also because West Ham weren't too keen to jump super aggressive. Bruno Fernandes has loads of room in the middle of the park. The problem is for him, the central progression is very difficult because there are so many bodies in the middle. It's really difficult to play through, so he resorts to a long ball out wide. This situation is a little bit better. Again, staggered midfield. And the pass is obvious. You got to go up to Bruno Fernandes and then pop it inside to Kobbie Mainoo. And we know that Licha, and we know that Bruno, and that Kobbie all have the intelligence to make this move work. And they absolutely do. And what Kobbie does here is takes more responsibility than what Bruno did in that last example. So Kobbie decides, I'm going to try and play through the middle. I'm going to try and find a way through the middle of the pitch. He takes responsibility. He takes an extra touch. He drives forward. And then he finds his staggered midfield partner. He moves the ball to Casemiro. But again, to give credit to West Ham, they were just so stubborn. There was no space in the middle of the park for Manchester United to play. Now, I do think tactically we made a bit of an error. We didn't have enough of a threat stretching the West Ham back line. And of course, if you don't stretch the defence, they can be compact like this. And it made life very difficult for United. Now let's just follow up on that point there, because something that United have done fantastically under Michael Carrick is had a multi-threat. We've tested the opposition in as many different ways as possible. So we have offered a threat through the middle of the pitch, which we've now seen, although it didn't work very well. In other games, we've also offered a threat in behind. We've always had someone making that run off of the shoulder. Now, don't get me wrong, there were 1 or 2 examples where someone would make that run, but largely speaking, we didn't see enough of those runs. The other thing that we didn't have enough of was the ability to go around West Ham. See, if you can't play through the middle, if you can't play over the top, then you've got to be able to play around. And United struggled with this. Ahmad on the right-hand side was quite isolated, which isn't a massive problem. Isolated 1 versus 1, we normally back Ahmad. He's quite a good player, but he just didn't have a great night. He wasn't amazing in his dueling situations. He wasn't amazing in these 1 versus 1s, and he didn't make great decisions on the ball. But also, I feel that we simply didn't give him enough of the ball. I would have liked to have seen United taking more risks positionally. Could we have pushed Diogo Dalot a little bit further forward? West Ham were clearly deep in their shape. Could Dalot have been allowed just to play a little bit higher, to give Dalot that extra player, to turn it into a 2 versus 2 rather than a 1 versus 1? Is that a way that we could have had more threat? We still had 2 players at the back, which was plenty to deal with the transition. With West Ham so deep, I would have liked to have seen that. On the left, there was a real profile issue with the way that United played, because Mbeumo and Cunha were sort of rotating between the striker position and the left wing. So Cunha starts up front, but there are also moments where Mbeumo plays up there as well. The problem was, neither of them wanted to go and play over here. Neither of them wanted to go and play on the touchline. So Cunha wants to come inside onto his right foot. And Mbeumo, yes, is left-footed, so you'd think it takes him wider, but he's still sort of hanging in that half space rather than properly committing to going wide. You've also got Bruno Fernandes, who plays in those spaces, and also Kobbie Mainoo. And you might think this is great because it's close proximity, so we can combine. But again, West Ham were just so congested that we couldn't. So we had to try and go around, and we just couldn't. Luke Shaw didn't look like he had that extra bit of intensity in him to get round on that overlap. Now, maybe it's a fitness thing. You know, United aren't used to playing every 3 or 4 days. If so, that's a concern, to be honest. But there was just something missing from Luke Shaw's performance, and we spoke about this actually in a video yesterday. Luke Shaw's great for the first 2/3 of the pitch, but when he gets into this position and he's got to show the craft and the intelligence to beat a man, or he's got to have the pace and acceleration to knock the ball and go past someone, he lacks it. He isn't able to do it. And for United, there was a real problem. And if we could get round the outside into the final third with Luke Shaw, there just wasn't really the presence in the box because everyone had dropped deep towards the left-hand side. We didn't have, let's say, a Benjamin Sesko through the middle. So this was the problem for Manchester United on the ball. I still think the ideas of what we were trying were right. We tried to go through, we tried to go around, but the profiles on the pitch weren't great. We were sort of missing a Somerville, to be honest, on the left-hand side, doing something a little bit like this. So United lacked that on the left, and I just think the players didn't click. Tactically, we made a couple of poor decisions with the way that we didn't stretch the opposition enough, and we know we're lacking certain profiles. We know we don't have that 1 versus 1 threat on the left-hand side. So on the ball, it just became very difficult. And what we really needed was a moment of quality from someone. We've spoken recently about the quality of our forwards, why we spent so much on these guys, and how good, these guys are, and their ability to break matches with a moment. We just didn't have that in this game. Recently we've seen long-range screamers, which are absolutely huge for game state. Let's say in the 20th minute, this is purely hypothetical, but imagine in the 20th minute, Cunha picks the ball up 30 yards out, strikes it into the top corner. Well, then it completely changes the game because West Ham have to come out a little bit more. Or United score this set piece, for example, it would change the game. But United just never found that way to capitalise. We sustained pressure, but never really looked like a massive threat. Now, if you're sort of dominating possession, but struggling to threaten, struggling to create a proper chance, a proper opportunity, you need to be good defensively. You need to be solid. You need to be compact. You need to make sure that you don't make defensive errors. But I also think you need to play with an intensity, because the second West Ham pick the ball up is the second they sort of spread out a little bit, right? The centre-backs drop either side of the goalkeeper, the midfielders might move a little bit further forward. The pitch suddenly spreads. So now, if United could pick the ball up, we can see that the spaces are much bigger, and this is where we could threaten for the first time. So it's disappointing to see another slightly flat pressing performance from United. We alluded to this against Spurs and also against Fulham. The United high press isn't working at the moment. It's a little bit too passive. There are spells where it's too easy to play against United. It's too easy to move through that first 40 yards. And it's a real missed opportunity for Manchester United. It's a missed opportunity to stretch that West Ham defence, nick the ball nice and high, and then punish them. And again, then the game state flips on its head. We are going to do a video this week looking at some of the problems with the high press and why it isn't quite working. You know, looking at what's good about it, but what's bad about it as well. However, one thing I should say is we still recover very well. If the high press isn't good, we are excellent at getting bodies back behind the ball, and I then think we look really compact. I don't think West Ham really offered a goal threat until the last 15 minutes of the match, where United were playing with extra strikers and Bumo was at right back, and we were really going for the game, which was good to see. It was good to see Carrick being aggressive. Then, of course, the gaps opened up a little bit at the back, which Lenny Yoro dealt with incredibly well, by the way. But apart from that, I thought defensively we were solid, which is why the goal is so annoying. Now, I can imagine a lot of people have already had a look at this goal and pointed at the problems that we make and the mistakes that we make in our own half. But I think it starts way before then. I think it starts here. There's one thing you've always got to appreciate as a footballer, and this is at every level of the game. Don't forget the throw-in taker. This fella here is not a threat right now because he can't play the ball with his feet. All he can do is throw the ball. However, the second he has thrown that ball, you've got to be ready to apply pressure to not just the player receiving the ball, but also the one that actually threw it. So yes, of course, we need to get towards this defender here to apply pressure because that's where the ball is going to go. But you've also got to make sure that you're going to get on the throw-in taker when he comes into play. The problem is, we didn't. We went the other way. So as the ball is thrown into the pitch, the ball drops back. Now the throw-in taker has all the time in the world. Where's Ahmad that we were just talking about? He's nowhere near. So Diouf has the opportunity to launch the ball forward. He sends it long, unchallenged. That's a problem. We've got United players really high up the pitch here, but no pressure on the ball. That's sort of an amateur mistake, to be honest. Then there's another one. Don't let the ball bounce. Just don't let the ball bounce here, Luke Shaw. It's a bad one. Don't let the ball bounce. The aerial duel is an unfortunate one. This is one of those things in football. Sometimes you win your headers, sometimes you don't. Luke Shaw was sort of on the back foot, having had the ball bounce. Bowen was coming in with more momentum and beats him in the air. I also don't think this is terrible from Luke Shaw. Again, I think you've got to go into the tackle. Perhaps he needs to be stronger. But Souček does very well, to be fair to him. But the real error from Shaw is letting the ball bounce in the first place. That put him on the back foot. Then he had to react. But then you need your teammates to help you out. And Lisandro Martinez here has to do more. Now, we can see where he's looking. We can see that he's very aware of what's going on in the box. But as now the wide defender, you've got to get out towards that ball. You've got to go and close down Jared Bowen. You have to. You absolutely have to. But he doesn't. He doesn't. Okay, so if you're not going to go and close down the ball, you've got to accept the ball is going to come into the box because Bowen's a good footballer. You give him that much time and space, he's going to do something with it. So what Lisandro Martinez now absolutely has to do is defend that region there. The ball cannot come in at the front post if you are Lisandro Martinez. That ball has to come through. Like, you've got to be there. You've got to stop it. And he doesn't. The ball comes in and Lisandro Martinez just never closes that sort of channel across the box. That sort of corridor of uncertainty that we talk about. That centre-back at the front post has to stop it. He doesn't. Kobbie Mainoo doesn't track Souček well enough. Let's be honest, he doesn't track him well enough. But I think the mistakes, there's three big mistakes here. It's, if I can find the clip, I've gone too far. It's here, not marking that throw-in taker, allowing the ball to go long. It's letting the ball bounce. I think that's a big mistake. Actually, let's call it 4. It's not getting out towards the ball and then not defending that near post. And it sort of just kills United. And in a league as competitive as the Premier League, these moments in tight games ultimately cost you points. So yeah, basically all of that wrapped up into one made for quite a bad night for Manchester United. It wasn't a great performance. It wasn't a great result at all. However, it's huge from Benjamin Sesko. I think the finish is absolutely incredible. It's almost frustrating because it shows what happens when we did attack a bit more. I think United played with a handbrake on too much in this game. There wasn't enough risk on the ball. We didn't take enough chances on the ball until the latter stages where we did actually create chances and maybe should have won the game in the last 10 minutes. So that's a little bit frustrating. But you know, that point come the end of the season could be massive. That it's a big goal from Benjamin Sesko. For the momentum to make sure that we don't lose is huge, but also literally in the league table, 1 point at the end of the campaign might be what gets you into the top 5. So it's crucial that Sesko got that last minute goal, and it's absolutely incredible how he does it. In terms of the night itself, I think it's important we don't go overboard. We spent the last couple of weeks going, United look great, but at some point we're going to face a low block, and that will be tough. So it'd be daft to then see United play against a low block, it be tough and lose our heads over it. We all knew it was going to happen at some point. We knew there would be a team that would be more stubborn defensively and a little bit more tricky to break down. Currently, United don't quite possess the tools to do it. In terms of personnel and profile, we're missing a certain type of footballer on the left-hand side in particular. Tactically, we didn't have the solutions. We didn't ask the questions that we needed to ask. And that's something that we need to work on. Michael Carrick and his coaches need to find different solutions. But also, I think we just had one of those nights where players didn't perform. I don't think Bruno Fernandes was amazing. Mbeumo was quiet. Ahmad was quiet. Cunha was quiet. Our big players that have produced so fantastically recently all just had a bit of a poor night on a night where the opposition were also very good. And tactically, sort of the first time we haven't quite got it right. And yeah, in this league, that leads to dropped points. And it's a real sucker punch for United, to be honest. It's a very disappointing result after the momentum recently. And it's frustrating now that we've got to sit on this result for 2 weeks. But we do have that. We do have 2 weeks. And Michael Carrick does have time now to try and find solutions. And that is now his next challenge. He spoke when he first came into the job and won the first game about the need to add layers. And that's something that he needs to do. There needs to be a different way of playing when we're trying to beat this opposition, and the tight combo stuff doesn't work quite as well. You've got to find a different way of playing, and that's the next challenge for United. But, you know, we got, what was it, 13 points out of a possible 15 in the last 5. If you told me that when Carrick was appointed, I'd have gone mental. So it's still great. We're still in a great place. But yeah, there's challenges that we need to overcome in the future to get Champions League football. That's where we're at as a football club, and it's also sort of where we're at with this video. So we're going to wrap up there. Thank you guys very much for watching this one. I hope you have enjoyed it. Not the result that we wanted, but I hope you've still enjoyed the video. If you have, please leave a like, subscribe, get your notifications on, and as always, I'll see you in the next one.